Hi, I'm Ariel. You're watching She Wants the Diction, and today I'm going to be doing my 400 subscriber Q&A. So I'm going to be answering your guys' questions, all of them, because I'm extra like that. Let's just go ahead and get started. I'm not going to keep you guys waiting. Christy from Books Are Neat asked me, is there a song/artist that always reminds you of a certain book? And I would say yes. Agnes Obel has this song called Riverside that always reminds me of the book Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. If you've actually read that book, you'll remember there's a scene where the protagonist is like sort of naked and submerged in like this creek or riverbed, or I don't know what it is, and there's a very impactful scene. Like a lot of that book deals with abuse and an abusive father's figure specifically. And so the father kind of catches the girl while she's sitting there like up to her neck in the creek or whatever, and that scene, like right when she's by herself right before the dad gets there, I really feel like that song sort of encapsulates that scene, or maybe like the whole vibe of that book. And then Christy also asks, what would you name your future cat? I don't have any name ideas. I know that I probably want a black cat. I know a lot of people consider them like really bad luck, but I think, you know, they're just incredibly cute. And I don't understand why people don't like them. I've wanted a cat for like years and years, and back in the day I was like, if I got a cat, I would totally name my cat Marlon, because I was obsessed with the BBC retelling with Colin Morgan and Bradley James, and I just thought like the character Merlin was like the most adorable thing ever, so I was like, if I ever got a kitten, I would name him Merlin. But now like I don't know, because like obviously that was like years ago, I'm not that into that fandom now, but that was like the main name that I was considering. She also asks, what's your favorite decorative piece in your home? Like furniture or art or whatever, really. My favorite decorative piece, if I don't say the tapestry, is gonna have to be this like splatter, not like splatter painting, but it's like swirl painting. I don't know how to describe it. It's like if Jackson Pollock, I feel like, painted with like bright, vibrant colors like I feel like that's what this painting looks like. I actually got it for, I think, $10 last year on my birthday. There's just this random booth in the flea market that was selling all kinds of canvases and items with like this type of art on it, and I was really particularly drawn to that one, so I love it. It's very abstract and colorful and, I don't know, just cool, and also kind of like reminds me of like space or water or something. If you were to write a book, what genre would it be? I would probably write poetry. And I know this might surprise a lot of you because I don't particularly read what I feel like is a lot of poetry, but that is most of what I've written over the past few years, and most of what I've written throughout my life has been like short form things, so the genre of my book would probably be like poetry. Brian from Bookish asks, what are you writing now? To be honest with you, I'm not really writing anything right now, which sounds bad because I know that the traditional writing advice is that you're supposed to write every single day in order to practice, but I just haven't been. Honestly, like I got a lot of questions about my writing, I think because I mentioned it in the last video and a lot of people probably like didn't know because I don't really like talk about it like that. Jen at Remembered Reads asked me, can we see a full shot of the tapestry? Yes, of course you can see that. I'm gonna go ahead and insert a shot of it over this footage, but the illustrator is a woman named Vashti Harrison. She illustrated like the Little Leader series, and I read one of those books earlier this year, and really went and looked at her store and saw a lot of her art and the art style and absolutely fell in love, and then I had to order this tapestry. I highly recommend checking out not only that series, but also like her art and going and supporting her, because she primarily focuses on illustrating Black women and girls in her work, which I really like. I like her style. I like what she does. This tapestry in particular, I liked the saying, I liked the flowers, I liked the Black girl reading. I liked everything about it, so like I had to get it. She also asked, what's the weirdest thing you found thrifting? A few years ago, I found a picture frame with like a dry erase board where like the picture should be, and someone had written on it, "Make a baby!" exclamation point, and I'll insert a picture here if I can go back and find it. But the only thing I could think of was like, it was sad because like, what if someone had like found out that their friend was pregnant and gotten them this picture frame that they were supposed to put a picture of their baby in when the baby was born, and then like, because that had obviously like been donated or given away, I thought maybe they lost the baby. Maybe they decided like not to have the baby. Maybe I was just like, I wonder what the fuck happened. Like, it was kind of like creepy and sad and also weird, and I just like really wanted to know what the backstory to that was. The most awesome thing that I found thrifting, I think Lydia also asked me this question, but I found quite a few awesome things thrifting. In fact, most of the awesome things that I own have come from thrifting. Like, I don't think there's really anything I have that's cool that wasn't thrifted. I don't know, maybe the best thing I found thrifting is my NASA mug. Or maybe the best thing I found thrifting is my Polaroid camera. And yes, it actually works. I have used it, I've bought the film for it. I know Polaroid recently sort of like re-released or like remade the Polaroid camera, but this is like an authentic one. It actually came with the box and everything, like original box. Or maybe the most awesome thing I found thrifting is this Michael Kors raincoat. I mean, actually, technically my friend found this thrifting, and I believe she also paid $10 for it and bought it for me because, if you don't know, I'm obsessed with purple. I love purple. I have like all purple everything. And not that I particularly care about name brands, but Michael Kors is like a really nice brand. So it's also like trench coat length. Like you can't really see it in the shot, but, or maybe the most awesome thing I've thrifted is my Thinker paperweights. I've had these for a couple of years and they're not like marked or made by anyone or anything. They're just kind of off-brand, but I love them to death. They are so awesome. I love the Thinker in general just because like I'm always thinking. I feel like it's very fitting. Renee at the Librarian of Alexandria asked me favorite funny quote. This is just one that springs to the top of my head, but you know the Albert Einstein quote about like human stupidity? Like, I feel like that's pretty funny and also like true. Two things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity, and I'm not sure about the universe. Yeah, I tend to like those sort of misanthropic quotes. I will say Albert Einstein was kind of a huge dickhead. I only find this out when I read the book The Other Einstein, which is like a fictionalized account of his wife's life, but it is highly suspected that Einstein was very abusive to his wife and very cold towards her, and that she may have actually helped him with a lot of his discoveries and did not get any of the credit. So yeah, Einstein, not the greatest person, but I do like that quote. And then she also asks most impactful one. Like every time I read something, I feel like I find or see a quote that's impactful, so I couldn't just sit here and name them for you, so I'll just name one out of a book that I read recently. I recently read Heartberries by Terese Marie Mailhot. The quote that really struck me out of here was, "How could misfortune follow me so well, and why did I choose it every time?" And the reason that that really hit me is because it made me think a lot about like being younger and when I was like, what I like to describe as lost in the world, which is like a reference to the Kanye West song. But I really just had this feeling of like being lost in my early 20s, which I think is probably pretty common. But yeah, that quote kind of gives me the same feeling that the book Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi really gave me, where like I just wanted to hug that protagonist because I felt like so close to her, like I related to her so much. Fave first line. I honestly cannot think of one. I'm so sorry. I could have like gone back and looked through like my favorite books, I guess, and tried to pick a favorite line, but I don't know. I guess first lines don't really stick in my head that much, or I don't really tend to think about it, so. Sage from Sage Reads asks, what's the most underrated book you've read? And I'm gonna give kind of another cop-out answer because I feel like I tend to like books that are underrated or not that popular, or like I appreciate things that are like other people don't really like or are like kind of divisive in a way. So I'm not gonna really name a specific one. I feel like every single book that I like is sort of not appreciated to the extent that I feel it should be. Sage also asks, what author would you want to interview in a YouTube original? Wow, imagine me having a YouTube original, first of all. But second of all, I think I would want to interview a queer poet, such as Tommy Pico or Danez Smith, simply because, as I've said, most of what I write or like have written in the past is poetry, and obviously I'm queer, and so I want to ask them all kinds of questions about what it's like being a queer poet and how they reconcile what they do like with the canon of poetry, how they feel about classical poetry and the poetic canon, and how they sort of broke into the genre or industry or whatever you want to call it, and like their experiences with becoming popular, becoming more well-known. And I would just kind of like want to pick their brains, and I think they would both just be like really fun to hang out with in their own way. Ziara from Z Love Books asks, what makes you DNF a book? First of all, your name is very beautiful. I love that name. Second of all, what makes me DNF a book? Oh, so many things. I used to be one of those people that could never DNF a book, and finally, I have become okay with doing it. The short answer is basically when I'm not enjoying a book, I don't force myself to finish it anymore just for the sake of finishing it. If I'm realizing that it's just not doing it for me, I will quit. Specifically, I will DNF things with like a lot of like gross out passages or things that make me feel like physically sick. And just to give you an example of this, recently I DNF'd Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. I'll just read you the quote that made me stop reading. The dog's butthole fell out while he was pooping, and they got an operation to put it back in. The butthole fell out again, and because the dog was blind and his butthole was ruined and he was suffering from tumors in old age, they let the dog pass on. And I listened to that right before my lunch, and I almost threw up. I DNF'd another book just like this recently. It was Naamah by Sarah Blake, because there was this passage about filling ovaries with stones, and there were just a lot of descriptions that made me feel like really physically sick. I'm not good with that type of like squeamish stuff. Same thing with like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, I DNF'd because there was a lot of just like gratuitous violence, rape, child abuse, sexual assault. It was just really, really a lot. Another thing that will really immediately make me DNF a book is racism. So I DNF'd Walden by Henry David Thoreau because of this. Typos sometimes, if they're incessant, will make me DNF a book because I can't stand that. Sometimes I just DNF things because I don't enjoy the writing style, like Last True Poets of the Sea by Julia Drake was one such example. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green is another example of that. Wilder Girls by Rory Power, I DNF'd because of that. I feel like I'm pretty picky, and I'm okay now with stating that, you know, not every single thing that is beloved is gonna be for me. And I feel like I'm better now at recognizing that and just abandoning it. Like, I give it a fair chance, but if I am still not enjoying it like a fourth of the way or halfway through the book, I will put it down, which I think is honestly the way it should be. Beck from Mooney Reads by Starlight asked me, what are your top 3 favorite bands? Love this question. I should have mentioned that I am a huge music lover in my like original About Me, but I didn't. So I'm really, really glad that I got this question because now I can kind of talk about it. First of all, I feel like I'm a person who really prefers like solo artists to bands, if that makes any sense. But I'm gonna stick to the question and not get off track. So my favorite band of all time is gonna have to be the British rock band Muse. If you guys know the little title card that plays like at the beginning of every single one of my videos, that actually uses a 3-second clip from one of their songs called Break It To Me. It's off their most recent album called Simulation Theory. Absolutely love that song. It is a bop. And if you actually listen to the lyrics, I feel like it's just like story of my life, dude. Like, I feel like it's like theme song, you know what I'm saying? Like, Matt Bellamy's voice is just like heaven. Like, literally, he can do so many amazing fucking things with his voice that it's just insane. And if you don't believe me, look up the song Microcuts and just listen to the shit that he does on that song with his voice. It is insane. And I know like that song might put some people off and it's not going to be for everybody if you don't like operatic screaming. And yes, it's kind of hard to tell what he's even saying, but I feel like that just contributes to the song. Like, it's such a pure, unadulterated emotion, and I don't know, something about it I just love. Another thing Muse does that I really love is like they have these very sort of like classical piano riffs in their music, and then like they have that, and then also like they'll just like rock out, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like all those elements combined, like the voice and then like the rocking out and then like the piano, and then on top of the fact that a lot of their lyrics are about things that I really, really like or I'm interested in, like almost all of their songs are about like rebelling against whatever authority is in power. They have songs inspired by like 1984. They have songs that are about like aliens, robots, technology, the future, conspiracy theories, the end of the world, the apocalypse. And I really, really tend to like dystopias and stuff that deals with the end of the world. So like all those elements combined, like I really only started getting into Muse in like the past, I'd say like 3 years. But they're like one of my all-time top favorite bands. They've gotten me through so much. Like back when I used to work in the convenience store and I was like assistant managing or whatever, I would have to spend several hours a day in like a walk-in cooler. So, you know, like the coolers where you go to like grab your drinks or whatever. I would have to spend hours a day in there stocking those. So I would be in there with like gloves and a big coat, like giant headphones on. And I would just be listening to like Muse's entire discography. And every time I was having a bad day, like they would get me through that day. And to this day, when I feel like down, I like always listen to them, and it just, I don't know, it makes my day so much better. And they've just gotten me through like so many hard times. And I just love how like unapologetically dramatic they are. Like I feel like they take a lot of inspiration from Queen. And I don't know a whole lot of Queen or listen to a whole lot of Queen, but I don't know, I just love that. Like give me the pump, give me the fanfare, give me all that, you know? If you're gonna start getting into Muse, like everyone knows Uprising, but I actually recommend starting with Origin of Symmetry because I feel like that was when I really started like getting into them and liking them. My second favorite band would probably be Foster the People. Their album Torches is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. I have never put that album on, listened to it, and come out of the other side not feeling better than I did when I started the album. I just love all of these songs so much. I don't know what more I could say. I just absolutely love that. I also have good memories of drinking wine and listening to Sacred Hearts Club. So, Pay the Man in particular, probably my favorite song off of that album. My third favorite band would probably be The Neighborhood. A lot of people know them from their song Sweater Weather, which is obviously a great song. But everything that makes that band amazing, honestly, I feel like is because of the lead singer, Jesse Rutherford. So he came up with like the whole black and white and upside down house and aesthetic and all that stuff that they have. Like everything that I feel like is good about that band is because of Jesse. And like not only is his voice amazing, but like the aesthetics and concepts that he comes up with and his lyrics, some of his lyrics I feel like are just like unforgettable. And a lot of that band's lyrics I feel like deal with anxiety and depression, which is another reason that I love them. But Jesse himself has like 2 solo projects that he's put out, and I think his solo career is really, really underrated. I just want to give him a shout out because I feel like no one appreciates his stuff like the way that I do. Whereas they have a very specific aesthetic that they have to stick to, Jesse sort of like fluctuates between all these different styles. Like he can do R&B, he can do rap, he can do pop, he can do like acoustic, just all these different styles and all these different moods, and he's just able to switch between them so fluidly, and his voice just like can do like any mood, any genre, and I absolutely love that about it, and I just think he's so unique. I've not heard anything about him being queer, but honestly, like if it ever came out that he was, I would not be surprised. Like he has a girlfriend and everything, but he plays with gender a lot in the way that he dresses. Like he'll wear a lot of traditionally women's clothing, he'll wear nail polish, makeup, jewelry, those type of things. So I love a man that isn't afraid to experiment with their looks and experiment with their gender and just doesn't give a shit what anybody else thinks or says about it. And I just think that's so fearless and brave. Like even if he is straight, like a straight man, I just think that's so brave because there's so many people, like hyper-masculine people, that would have a problem with somebody appearing as less than masculine. So I absolutely love that for him. Like he is a fucking icon. And I will stan him, and I know I'm supposed to be talking about The Neighborhood, but I love him. Really, please go give his album and or GarageBand a shot, and I guarantee you if you like pop music that you will not be disappointed. Okay, Beck also asks, what is one of the first books that you saw yourself represented in? I've told several people about this recently, like in the comments, but one of the only picture books that I remember from being a kid with any black kids in it is Bright Eyes, Brown Skin. And I think it was one of the only books I had that had black kids in it, although I didn't realize it when I was obviously little. But I still remember it to this day, so I feel like it must have had a really, really strong impact on me for me to like still remember it so clearly and like remember the title and everything and to remember it so fondly. So I'm gonna say like as far as like physically, that was probably the first book that I ever saw myself reflected in. Lydia from Lydia Holmes asks, what book do you wish you could read for the first time again? And I'm gonna go ahead and say Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I have a whole video up where I already reviewed this book and gushed about it and loved it, but I'm not a big rereader of books at all, and I feel like once I know like the ending or, you know, like the plot points, I'm not really that interested in going back and like reliving it. I just feel like time is too short for me to like reread. And like once I've experienced it, it's like I've experienced it. I don't really feel the need to go back and experience it again when there's so many other new things that I could experience. And that's probably just like the novelty lover seeker in me. But Annihilation was so powerful, and I loved this character so much that I kind of wish I could re-experience it. Lydia also asked me, what book impacted you the most? And I'm gonna go ahead and say Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Now I know both of these books that I mentioned have been science fiction by old white guys, and that's unfortunate. Apparently, maybe I'm like an old white guy on the inside. I don't know. But like on the real though, the reason that I love this book, I read this book in high school, and I feel like it was one of the first times that I saw an accurate representation of a gifted child, like in literature or whatever. And because I grew up like in gifted programs all throughout my life, in like gifted classes and honors classes and advanced classes, IB classes, all that fucking shit. This was the first time that I really saw what I felt like was an accurate reflection of that. And like Ender did not have a good time in this book. Like I feel like people think that like being smart or whatever is like a shitload of fun. And like it was not. So I wrote a blog post a few years ago called A Funeral for Lost Books, where I talked about Ender's Game in it. I'll just kind of read you guys like what I said about it in that post, and I will link to the post down in the description as well. Ender's Game is a sci-fi novel about an outcast boy genius who ends up saving the Earth, recommended to me by my friend Webby, who all but forced it into my hand in high school, saying, "You have to read this." She wasn't wrong, I loved it. The ending plot twist blew my mind, and I identified heavily with the protagonist, Ender, who doodled in class when he was supposed to be paying attention. He wasn't trying to be contrary, but it was always perceived that way. The teacher would call on him as a sort of punishment, but it backfired because he always knew the answers. I could easily relate, seeing as so many times in my life I'd done the same, resorting to reading a book during a boring lecture while waiting for the rest of the class to finish an assignment I'd blazed through. Often I was scolded for the habit. I understood and empathized with Ender because he was like me. His intelligence set him apart from his peers and even made him hated by some. He was a prime example of the blessing and the curse that is intelligence, because for all of his smarts and strategic gifts, he was still an easy target for bullies, despised by his own brother, socially isolated, and achingly lonely, with his sister Valentine being his sole confidant. I liked him because he was strong, but he wasn't invincible. In many instances, he was vulnerable, and in the end, massively gullible, manipulated by adults into committing an unspeakable crime. Ender was the first truly accurate portrayal of a gifted child I'd ever read, which had a profound and lasting impact to me. To this day, it's still one of my favorite books. I have reread this. I would say I probably read it within like the past year, and I had like a few minor gripes with it, but overall, I still really, really liked it, and I realized that a lot of it is probably like nostalgia lens that I'm viewing this through, and I'm unable to separate my high school nostalgia for reading this book with the quality of it, because I know a lot of people really hate it and like don't like it, but it was still meaningful to me at the time. And despite the fact that Orson Scott Card is a huge dick and a huge homophobe and just a complete asshole, he still wrote what to me is a masterpiece and really made me feel seen at that time in my life. So I'm gonna say this is one of the books that has probably had the biggest impact on me. Thank you so much for these questions, Lydia. I absolutely love that I'm finally having the chance to talk about Ender's Game on this channel, because I wanted to do a whole video where I talked about like my background growing up as like a gifted child and in gifted education classes, and I was gonna like actually just talk about this book for the whole video, but I never did it, so I'm glad I have the opportunity to do so now, so thank you for asking that. Ariel from Ariel Reads asks me, what are your favorite songs to listen to right now? To be honest with you, I haven't been listening to a whole lot of music. I've been more listening to audiobooks while I'm at work now, and it's really been upping my reading count. Like, I'm at like 97 books right now, and my goal for the year was like 100. So those really short audiobooks are really helping me pad out my like reading count for the year. I also have a short attention span, so that's why I feel like a 4-hour audiobook I can get done in one listening session, whereas like a 10-hour one that I have to spread over a week is like not doing it for me. But what I've been listening to lately, I keep replaying Curve by Somo, which is honestly kind of a stupid song, so don't judge me. But if you like R&B artists that really cater to like their female fans, like Trey Songz, The Weeknd, etc., you'd probably really like Somo. Party Next Door's song Loyal with Drake, I really like. I don't know how to properly describe this, but like those sort of like Jamaican influenced or like dance hall sounding songs, and this is one of those where I'm just like, you know, like vibing out with it. I don't know, I really tend to like those type of songs. A lot of times when I get in the car, I've had Chris Brown's Indigo, the extended edition album on like shuffle. If you're gonna listen to a song off of there, like I feel like this is a song that everyone needs to listen off of here, is Come Together. It's a duet that he did with her, H-E-R, I don't know what she goes by, but just an absolutely beautiful duet. I think their voices go so well together that I would kill for them to do a collab album. Like, kill. I need it. I love this song, like, oh. And I know some of you are gonna be like,
you're a feminist. Why are you listening to Chris Brown? He beat Rihanna. Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, I acknowledge all of that. I know all of that. And I actually have an internal conflict about whether or not listening to artists that are misogynist is like wrong or not. Should we separate the artist from the art? Like, I feel like this is sort of an ongoing debate within like, you know, the art world, the film world, the music world. And I actually wrote a whole post on my blog where I kind of talk about this exact issue. It's called Black Male Rappers, Misogyny and Me, and I will link this post down in the description if you're interested in reading about kind of my conflict over listening to R&B and rap artists that are known misogynists, or, I mean, same thing would go for like people who have committed like sexual assault, anything like that. I've kind of already talked about it and addressed it in that post. If you like chill hop or lo-fi hip hop, the other thing that I've been listening to a lot recently is this artist called Mujo, MUJO. Really, any of their albums are good, but they just released an album called Collabs Volume 2. I've been having that on shuffle, and it's really great. They also have an album called Hidden Forest that I really like. I love lo-fi hip-hop. It's just like great background music. My anxiety brain loves it, and I think that might be because of the loops. The loops it kind of finds soothing, and also just like jazzy, down-tempo, downbeat, with that little bit of piano sprinkled in there, those piano samples that I love. Yeah, I just adore it, so look into them. Ariel asked me, what do you like writing about? A lot of you might not know this, but I actually have a blog, and I've had that blog since 2016. Now, I haven't really written anything on there in the past year, but I used to like to write on there about like music that I was currently enjoying, like films, things that I thrifted or found while I was thrifting. Baking, I used to like to bake. And I still do. I don't really like cooking, but I like baking. Sometimes I would write book reviews. Sometimes I would write fiction. Sometimes I would write about things that happened to me at work. Sometimes I would post poems. So really, I was kind of all over the place. I would also like write about my mental health issues and ways that I found of dealing with those, and like updates and like what was happening in my life. The story of how I met Adam, actually quite a few of you asked me this one, and I would like to tell this story, but honestly, I feel like there is so much to it that like I don't want to do it a disservice by like forgetting something or like telling it wrong. And then also I feel like I really like our story, like how we met, and it's very cute and it's also very personal to me, so like I don't want to do it wrong, if that makes any sense. Like I'm nervous to tell it, and then also like I just treasure it so much that it feels like, you know, like I just want to hold on to it almost, which is kind of silly because it's like by telling it that doesn't change it. It's not like I'm like giving it our relationship away. But at the same time, I feel like I'm such a private person that it's weird for me. But I do still want to share it. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird. So me and Adam actually met at work, which I know sounds super lame, but hear me out. So, you know that convenience store that I'm always complaining about that was really shitty that I worked at for like 3 years? So me and Adam both worked there actually. But our schedules did not overlap because he was the overnight employee and I was like the early morning. So I would come in at 6 a.m., which is like when, you know, he or whatever overnighter was working would get off. So we worked opposite shifts. We didn't really know each other as a result. Like we saw each other in passing. And so we really only ever exchanged like small talk. But I remember that I thought he was cute, which isn't saying much because I feel like I think like a lot of people are cute. But I feel like I liked him but didn't know that I liked him because I remember I went out of my way to like say hello to him, which if you know me at all, I absolutely hate small talk and I loathe doing that. So when I went out of my way to like say hi to him, I feel like he kind of ignored me, which he says now that he didn't hear me, and I'm sure that's correct because like he does have issues with like hearing in one of his ears. But so anyway, I thought that he didn't like me. I mean, I feel like that's in my anxiety brain. I feel like a lot of people, I misinterpret like social cues, and I think that they don't like me, and really they just didn't hear me, or they're just busy with something or whatever. And we had like a couple exchanges before. Like I remember my now ex that I was dating at the time was such a dumbass, and he actually locked me out of my apartment one night, like not on purpose, like he had left the keys inside and like closed the door. So I had to walk down to the gas station, which is like maybe a 15-minute walk from my apartment at the time. And I stormed in there, got on the phone, had to call my landlord and try to get them to come and unlock the door so we would have somewhere to sleep that night. And I remember I was so fucking mad, and like Adam was like at the front like working or whatever, and he sort of came back there to check on me and was like, you know, are you all right? Like, what's going on? And I was like, I remember I just said something like, oh, my dumbass boyfriend locked me out of my apartment. And then that was all I really said, and then I just kind of like stormed out. Like I was so mad that I didn't even care that I was like sharing this personal information or whatever. Months and months and months and months later, I think someone had either quit or been fired. So for a week, me and him were scheduled to work together on the day shift because it would usually be me, my manager, and then one other person. So we were working together. I remember that he friended me on Facebook, and I added him. I really only add people that I've actually met. So I was like, oh, he must have found me based on my name, reading my name off the schedule, and added me on Facebook. So I guess that he already liked me and was planning to ask me out like during that week, but like I didn't know that. So I remember I had gone off to clean the bathrooms and he stayed at the register. And while I was in the bathroom, I got like this idea for a poem. And so when I got back to the register, I grabbed a sticky note and was sort of like scribbling down whatever it was, the idea, so I didn't forget it. He made some kind of joke or something like, are you over there writing a book? Are you over there writing a whatever? And I kind of laughed, and I remember I had this split second where I was like, am I going to lie about the fact that I'm writing a poem, because then he's going to be like, oh, you're a writer, and ask me all kinds of questions and just like get in my business and be really annoying about it? Or am I going to tell him the truth? I don't know if it was just in that moment that I just didn't give a shit, or I knew that I could trust him with like the truth. But I told him that I just got this idea for a poem while I was in the bathroom and was writing it down. And he was like, oh, you like to write? I'm a writer too. And then I was kind of like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, what do you like to write? And he was like, I actually write music. I make rap. And I was like, rap? You know, like, you don't look like a rapper, because, you know, he's so shy and quiet. And I know a lot of like wannabe rappers from Springfield, but he didn't seem like the type. Like, he wasn't cocky and boisterous and like all those things that you associate, like that ego that you associate with like a rapper. He was like, no, I seriously do. And I was like, okay, well, he's like, I'll send you some of my music. And I was like, okay, I'll listen to it, whatever. So I remember later he sent me a link, and I was at my friend's house, and so I was like laying in her bed, and I listened to this entire album that he sent me. He sent me a YouTube link to it. And I'll be honest, I didn't really understand it, but I thought it was interesting, and I was interested. And so that was the first time that I really started to see Adam as like a person. Like, I was interested in him because he was also an artist. And that was the first time that he really like popped up on my radar, if that makes any sense. And then there were a couple more times where we circled around each other. I remember we were both getting off work at the same time, and I passed him on my way out the door walking home or whatever, and he was like, hey, do you like to smoke? And I was like, no, I don't smoke, whatever. Because for some reason back in those days, literally everyone I worked with like thought I was a stoner, or like implied that I was a stoner. And I guess it's just the way that my brain works, or the way that I come off. People like think I'm some kind of huge stoner, but like, I've never liked smoking weed. It makes me extremely anxious. So I just kind of like played him off. I was like, no, I don't smoke. I just kind of laughed, and then I kept walking home. And so I realized now that that was like him trying to like have a conversation with me or like hang out with me more, but I didn't realize it at the time because social pariah. But so like I just walked home after that, and I remember the next day his friend sort of like got my attention as I was like walking home and was like, hey, do you need a ride? And I'm like looking at his friend, and I'm looking at him, and I'm just like, okay, I guess so. And so like his friend drove me home, but I really think what happened was that his friend was trying to like be a wingman for him. Like, he saw an opportunity because I was always walking home, and an opportunity to get to know me by like giving me a ride or whatever. And so, but he was too shy to ask, so like his friend did it for him. So the friend ended up driving me home the first time. And then the second time, Adam actually asked me the next time and drove me home. And I remember we drove like in silence the whole way to my apartment. My brain, I was so anxious, I couldn't think of anything to say. And also, like, he wasn't making conversation and couldn't think of anything to say, so we drove, like, the whole 3 minutes or whatever it was there in just, like, complete silence, and I just felt so awkward, but I couldn't get my brain to, like, generate anything. And so, yeah, that was one of our awkward encounters. And then another time he came in while I was working, like, him and his friend, and he was just like, hey, so I want to buy some candy, and I don't know what to get. Could you help me pick something out? And I remember I was like, sure. And I just sort of like skipped over to the candy aisle and was looking all around at everything and picked out like those, you know, those long rainbow, like sour Airhead strips. I was like, why don't you get these rainbows? And he was like, oh, okay. And he grabbed those and grabbed a couple other things. And then like he got to the register and like I checked him out and everything. And then he was like, here you go. He like gave me the package and he was like, these are for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, it was really, really cute. So we had all these little encounters where we like sort of danced around each other that I think are really, really adorable looking back. And I just remember like being really irrationally happy about like those encounters just because like I didn't expect it. Like, I thought he just wanted me to pick it out. I didn't know that like he was gonna like give it to me. So then I remember the day that he asked me out because I was very, very sick and I couldn't afford to miss work. I had come into work anyway. And it was one of those days where I was just dragging. I didn't have the energy to make conversation. I was just trying to get through the day so that I could go home. I remember just out of the blue, he was just like, hey, would you want to go on a walk with me? Or do you want to go on a walk with me? And I remember like, as I was like, go on a walk with you, I was just kind of like curious. And then I remember a customer walked up. So I had kind of like repeated his question, but I hadn't answered him yet. And so I rang up the customer and I was here thinking about it. And then my response was like, well, I would go on a walk with you, but actually, I'm not feeling very good today. So maybe we could do it some other time. Because I remember I wanted to say yes, but ever since I had gotten out of that, like, that last bad relationship, I told myself that I was always going to prioritize myself, and I was never gonna agree to do something that, like, I didn't want to do or that wasn't best for me. So I gave him, like, a soft no. Like, I wanted to say yes. And I remember being so struck by the fact that he asked me to go for a walk, because so many guys that hit on me, they would always, like, I feel like every time they asked me out, they would ask me out, like, just the wrong way. Like, they would always be like, why don't you come over? What's your number? Can I get your number? Like, hey, you're really beautiful. They would start off with, like, compliments or just creepy shit. And I remember he just asked me to go for a walk, and it was so simple and straightforward and just sweet that I remember really, really liking how he asked me that. And to this day, I feel like it's so memorable. Like, I don't know why I'm getting emotional, like, shit. I feel like it's just, like, the best way that I've ever been asked out. I don't know. I love it to death. I love him to death. So yeah, that's how me and Adam met. The short answer is at work, but there is a lot more to it than that. So even though working at that gas station was one of the worst job I've ever had, I do not consider it a total loss, because I met Adam there, and I don't know that I ever would have met him otherwise, because neither of us really likes to go out and socialize a whole bunch. Like, we're both very introverted and keep to ourselves and keep our circles small. So I am thankful that I worked there, if only so that I could meet him. Priscilla also asked me, can you share a favorite memory? And probably my favorite memory of me and Adam that springs to mind is this time that we went to this campsite that was kind of outside of town, and we were the only people there. And so, like, we camped, like, the full 9 yards. Like, we had the tent set up. We grilled brats on, like, this little, like, grill that was there. I'll try to insert some pictures if I have any. So we just went camping. There was no, like, cell service, so we were just, like, together the whole time. And then actually we did, and we went out to, like, this field when it got dark and spread out this blanket and then, like, watched shooting stars, which is, like, a cliche that you see in a movie, right? But I had never actually I feel like I've never really seen a shooting star. And so it was just beautiful and really intimate. I realized a lot of really, really important things while we were out there, and kind of made peace with a lot of things. So yeah, overall it was just a great experience, and I'm so glad that my first time was with him, and then we got to share that. Priscilla also asked, is there a book that you've read but changed your mind about since starting your channel? I don't really think so. Like, I feel like I tend to read a book and then process it and then say whatever I'm going to say about it, and then that's kind of the end of it. I don't really feel like I revisit things or, like, change my mind a whole lot. So no, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. SassyFangs13, who is actually one of my in real life friends, asked me, when thrifting or checking out books at the library, have you ever found things stashed in the pages? If yes, what's the most interesting thing you've ever found? And I actually do have an answer to this. I found all kinds of things stashed in pages. I can't particularly remember, but I do have one that I saved, and it is this extremely odd photo of a person in a Dalmatian costume with their Dalmatian in what looks like a nurse's costume. I feel like this person was a nurse and they were dressing as their dog and dressed their dog as them. So it's honestly kind of fucking hilarious. I remember this fell out of some book that I was reading, and I just cracked up and showed it to Adam, and we just, like, could not stop laughing about it. On the back it says, to Ryan, love, Peg, and Nell, can't tell. Don't forget the promise. June. Ominous note that I have no idea what it means. So this is by far the most interesting thing that I've ever found in a book. Sassy also asks, if you could have a craft/skill downloaded to your brain with no learning curve, what would you pick and how would you use it? Excellent question, because I feel like, you know, if I was going to be Neo in the Matrix and I could download any skill set to my brain, by far I would pick self-defense. It doesn't really matter what type of self-defense, just any type of self-defense, because I'm a runner. And just due to harassment that I've had, like, while I've been out running, and catcalling, and just situations where I feel like I've been in danger, I would really want to know how to defend myself. And honestly feel like I should probably, like, get some self-defense training at some point, or, like, take a class on it, because I'm just worried that if I were to get into a physical altercation that a man would be able to overpower me. And, like, I've read articles and stuff about it before, and, like, I know, like, where to hit them. I know that you're supposed to, like, use your elbow, like, hit them in the nose, different stuff like that. But I'm just afraid that, you know, something would happen to me. So anything I could learn on how to defend myself, I would love to do that. Sassy also says, you're a writer. Would you ever do readings of some of your stories or poetry on your channel to let people deconstruct and respond to? Yes, I actually have read one of my poems on my channel. I will link to that up in the cards. I've also published a few of my poems on my blog, which is linked down in the description. I would be open to doing this. I don't think I've ever specifically like read anything and then asked for like a critique or a response, but when I was in college and I took a poetry course, we had to read our stories and poems like in front of the class and then get feedback on it, which I think was really immensely helpful. So yeah, if people ever wanted me to do something like that, I feel like I would. Megan from Mookie Reads asks, what's a historical, contemporary, and futuristic book you love? To be honest with you, I don't read a whole lot of historical. I assume you mean historical fiction and not just like straight history. If I do read like books that are focused around history, I feel like it's mostly like Black history. I'm not sure I specifically have books that like fit into these categories, but if you want to know some of my favorite books, The Bees by Lillian Paul, Animal Farm by George Orwell, Even This Page is White by Vivek Shraya, Princess Ever After by Katie O'Neill, As the Crow Flies by Melanie Gilman, Black Girl Magic by Mahogany L. Brown, Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and those are just some of the books that I've loved over the past few years. I don't know that they necessarily fit into the categories that you specifically asked me, but there you go. And I already kind of talked about my love for Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer and Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I think those would cover like the futuristic category. Megan also asks, what's an antique or old book you consider a prized possession? And I'm going to show you guys the most beautiful book that I own. And that is my copy of Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Now, I've actually never read this, but it is by far the most beautiful book that I've ever owned. And I just absolutely love the gold leaf. Inside is beautiful as well. I'll show you guys a little bit. I've never actually read it, but I want to, and I've heard that Walt Whitman is queer, but I don't know if he actually is, or if that's just speculation, or like what is going on there. This is printed by Long River Press in 1976. So yeah, gorgeous. I have a whole video that I made on some of my antique books, like my oldest antique books. I will link that up in the cards if you're interested as well. Andrea from Book Ramble asked me, what's your favorite thing to snack on? And I feel like Ariel Reads also asked me, like, what's my favorite drink? So I would say, like, my favorite meal is probably tacos. And as far as, like, snacks, I'm on keto right now, so I'm not eating, like, the typical snacks that I would, but I really love Hint of Lime tortilla chips. I love chocolate-covered blueberries, or just blueberries by themselves. Like, I can just eat those by the handful. Really any type of cheesy chips, like Cheesy Sun Chips or Pringles. I don't really eat a whole lot of candy, but if I do, my favorite candy is like Reese's or Reese's Pieces. Especially when I go to the movies, I usually treat myself to Reese's Pieces, just because I don't go that much. And then I also like dark chocolate, but not like too dark. Not like 90%, probably like a good like 70, somewhere in there, but not milk chocolate. I also really, really like smoothies, and especially like peanut butter banana smoothies, and then some honey in there. Yeah, really any type of smoothie I love. I also really like yogurt, the Chobani Flip with the like graham cracker crumbs and stuff. Oh, love those. As far as like favorite drinks, I really like drinking lemonade. I also like green tea. Now, I don't usually buy like the tea bags like this, but this was kind of an emergency. I prefer to buy it loose leaf because it's better for the environment. While I've been on keto, I've been obsessed with these sparkling waters. They're kind of like LaCroix, but in my opinion, they taste better. And a lot of them, like this flavor, citrus and green tea, have caffeine in them, which obviously I like. One of my vices is like energy drinks. I'm quite the caffeine addict, although I don't really like coffee. Every single flavor of this that I've tasted so far, I've loved. These sparkling ice in these kind of like skinny torpedo bottles. These are also really good if you're on keto because they don't have carbs. And also note, I'm kind of doing like a lazy keto, so you're not really supposed to drink diet sodas and diet drinks on keto, but I kind of am anyways because I'm not doing it like very strictly. And also like the reason I like these and the water is because I really miss fruit, and fruit is very sugary, so it's not the greatest for keto. So in order for me to still get that fruit taste and like that sort of sugar craving, I rely a lot on like diet drinks, diet sodas. Charlotte from Tired Mama Tries to Read asked me, what is your earliest memory of being read to and of reading a book by yourself? I don't really have any specific memories of being read to, but I know that my dad taught me to read and was the one who spent a lot of time at home with me before I started school, and is probably the reason that I'm half as smart as I am today. It just really started me on on the road to education very young, which I am eternally grateful for. I don't have specific memories, but I remember like Dr. Seuss books, maybe Fox and Socks is one of the first things that I remember. Andrea also asked me, where do you like to read the most? And like in my leisure time, I prefer to like read in bed on the couch, but really I feel like reading in bed is like my favorite. Like I know it's bad because I fall asleep, but like it's just so cozy in the covers. Savvy from Savvy Writes Books says, I clicked on this video and your hair looked so gorgeous, so this is my question. What is your hair process like? My hair process is a huge pain in my ass, to be honest with you. But thank you so much for this compliment. I really appreciate it. My hair did look really good in that video, not to like toot my own horn, but it does not look as good as it did in that video because I just washed it and because it's very humid and hot today and curly hair does not like that. My hair process is very fucking tedious. Pretty much when I style it, it has to be wet. So whether this involves me styling it as soon as I get out of the shower or getting my hair wet in the morning and then like restyling it, like it has to be wet whenever I style it or it just doesn't work. So for the purposes of this video, I gathered together all of my hair products. It's a lot so that I can show you guys what pain and torture I go through for this fabulous hair. I really, really love that you asked this question because I feel like I don't get the opportunity to discuss my hair a whole lot in a way that feels safe or in an environment that feels safe, because a lot of times when people approach me about my hair, they're very rude. They want to pet my hair, which is disrespectful and dehumanizing. Like I'm not an animal at a zoo. Or they only want to focus in on my hair. Like they don't care about me as a person. They just see my hair and are like, wow, I wish I had that hair. And I'm like, no, you don't, because you have no idea how much time and effort and energy and comments that I have to deal with surrounding my hair. So I'm glad that I can talk about it here because I feel like hair is so important to a lot of Black women and we don't, or at least I don't get a lot of opportunities to discuss it in a way that I enjoy. So thank you for asking this question and asking it in a way that it was polite and respectful. Savvy asks, how often do you wash it? And this really just depends, but I would say I probably wash it like maybe twice a week. It really just depends on how often my scalp gets itchy. So I actually don't wash it, or like what you would think of washing it in the traditional sense. I do something called no poo, which is basically like you don't use shampoo. You just use deep conditioner, because the type of textured hair that I have, and probably none of these tips will really work for you because I have black textured hair, but a lot of people with black hair like don't need shampoo. They just need conditioner, because the shampoo, especially if it has sulfates, will suck all the moisture out of your hair and leave it like very big and just very dry and coarse. So I use the Palmer's Olive Oil Cleansing Conditioner Co-Wash, and this does not have sulfates, parabens, etc. Lately I have actually been adding a shampoo to my routine because my hair's been getting like super dry. So I've been using the Black Castor shampoo from Art Naturals, which is specifically for dry, itchy scalp. So this is like, if I'm starting to feel my scalp itch from product buildup or dandruff or what have you, I will use this, and this takes care of the problem. And what I will say is, I know some people have like a specific wash day where they do every single step of like their hair care routine. So they'll do this, and they'll do this, they'll do the shampoo and the conditioner and their deep conditioner all in the same day. I will not do that because I'm lazy. So like one time when I wash it, I'll shampoo it if my scalp is itchy. The next time that I wash it, I'll do my conditioner. And the next time that I wash it, I will use my deep conditioning mask. This is the Cantu Shea Butter for Natural Hair Deep Treatment Mask. And I will leave that on for the entirety of my bath or whatever, and then rinse it out. And this like gets my hair really moisturized and in really good shape. I tend to use it if I know like the next day I'm gonna need my hair to look really good, or I have like a special occasion, or it's just looking dry. And I will always comb through with a comb while I'm in the shower. My hair is actually wet to avoid tangles. I don't comb it, brush it, any of that stuff when it's dry. That's a no-no for curly hair. She also asks, do you use moisturizers in it? Yes, I do. My hair is very dry. It loves cream moisturizers. In the last video where you were complimenting my hair, I had just used the Curls Blueberry Bliss leave-in conditioner. You can buy this at Target. It smells very, very fruity, so if you're someone who likes like fruit smells, I would recommend this. The bottle is pricey. I think this was like $10, $15, and it doesn't look like a whole lot, but you only really need a very, very small amount of this, and it has a lot of slip. So like after I get out of the shower, I will apply this to my hair and then like let it dry. And this is like sort of more of like a special occasion thing. Most days I will just use my good old Cantu Shea Butter Leave-In Conditioning Repair Cream. And this just kind of smells like coconut. It has a very distinct smell that I like. And this lasts me like forever. I've probably had this for like a year and it's just now getting low. But she also asked, do I use any hair milk, smoothie, gel, etc.? I do actually have some gel, but I tend to stick to leave-in conditioners and hair creams just because I don't like the crunchiness that comes along with using gel. Now, if you have curly hair, the proper way to style it is to apply the gel, let it dry into that crunchy feeling that I hate, and then, I never do this, but you're actually supposed to break the gel cast after that, which involves like basically massaging the hair until you lose the crunchiness, but you maintain the hold. If I need my hair to absolutely be held in place, I will use gel, but I prefer my nice cream conditioners. And so in between days, when I just need to refresh my hair, I will use just a spray that's supposed to revitalize it. I will sprinkle water, and then I will also use this Cantu Shea Butter Comeback Curl Next Day Curl Revitalizer. The sprayer on this doesn't work very well, so I just sort of spray it into my hands and then rub it together and apply it all over, which I just did before this video because my hair was looking extremely dry. So that will kind of refresh it so I don't have to get it soaking wet. Obviously, it's really important as a person of color to like moisturize my scalp. Usually for that, I just use fancy ass coconut oil. This is organic extra virgin coconut oil, 100% pure, cold pressed and unrefined. And I will apply this directly to my scalp. Lately, I've been trying out this Cantu Shea Butter Tea Tree and Jojoba Hair and Scalp Oil. And this is really good. I like the nozzle applicator. And I think this is more for people with braids, but I feel like it smells really good and it's been working really good for me as well. So I've kind of been alternating with my usual coconut oil. The thing I like about this is it has like a nice consistency, even though it is kind of sticky. With the coconut oil, it hardens at room temperature. So you have to sort of warm it up in your hands first before it will like melt into the oil. So these are what I use to keep my scalp moisturized. And then I also obviously sleep with my hair wrapped at night so it doesn't rub on my face and doesn't rub on my pillow and get all dry. The other important hair care things that I do, I usually let air dry. My hair is so thick that it takes several hours for it to dry completely, even though it's this short. Like, it takes even longer when I had like long hair, but if I do have to blow dry it, I will always use a diffuser attachment, which helps spread the air around. It's better for curly hair and you get better lift. And also when I'm drying my hair, I get out of the shower, I do not use a regular towel. A regular towel is actually abrasive to curly hair. So I will use this microfiber towel. And this is actually like a beach towel that I ordered offline back in the day, but you can also use a t-shirt if you don't have a specific microfiber or Turby Twist or whatever on hand. And then Savvy also says, I'm currently trying out new hair stuff and your hair is goals. Thank you, girl. I will say that most of the stuff I learned about curly hair, I learned from Curly Penny on YouTube. Like, I remember one time I was sick and I just binged a shitload of curly hair videos because I was trying to figure out, it's taken me like my whole life to learn how to do my hair and do it correctly. I think Penny actually goes by just Penny Tovar, like her real name now, but she's really who taught me a lot of the things that I know about taking care of my hair. Like, I didn't have somebody when I was a kid to really teach me how to properly do my hair, so I kind of had to just look for someone who had a similar hair type to me on YouTube and then learn from them. And she honestly hasn't always been right about everything, but most of the stuff that I use and incorporate in my hair care routine, I learned from her. There are a ton of natural hair care channels on YouTube, so I really suggest figuring out like what curl type you are first, if you've never looked at like a curl chart, and that'll really help you to find a YouTuber who has similar hair to you, and then you can find out what they do to their hair and what works for you and what doesn't. I will say that you should probably look into like the curly girl method, the lock method. So those are my tips. I don't know if any will work for you because obviously we are different races and I have texturized hair, so hopefully some of that was helpful to you. So Sian at Pastori Time asked me a bunch of questions, but unfortunately YouTube ate her comment and I'm so sorry about that. I don't know why YouTube keeps doing this. I've noticed that my comments on other people's videos have been disappearing. People's comments on my videos have been disappearing. I will see that they commented in my notifications and then when I go to click on it, it's gone, and it's just really frustrating. YouTube is a piece of shit, and I'm so sorry that I ate your questions because I feel like you had such good questions for me. But in lieu of that, she asked me to talk about my yoga experience, and essentially I don't have much. I am a beginner to yoga, but I really enjoy the mindfulness aspect. I pretty much just do like YouTube yoga videos in my living room because I am too anxious and too broke to attend an in-person class as of right now. And I really, really like the channel Yoga with Adriene. She just has like a very calming presence, and I like that she offers variations on poses. So if you're not the best at yoga, or you're a beginner, or you're not very flexible, she really makes it feel like it's accessible for everyone and is something that's available for everyone. And it really not only helps me with like my physical pain, because I have a lot of like back pain from my work and just like standing and lifting and stuff like that. So it really, really helps me with that. And then also just like the mindfulness and breathing aspect I feel like is really useful to me as well. And so yeah, I just think it's a great way to not only relax, but just a great way of self-care. And I really, really enjoy her channel. So I'll link Yoga with Adriene in the description if you want to check her out. That's about the extent of my yoga experience right now. Mike from The Royal Mike Wilson says, I was talking to a friend of mine about black figures who aren't mainstream. Could you talk about a black figure you think is important who isn't popular? First of all, love this question. Thank you so much, Mike. He has a great channel, and I just want to shout him out real quick, actually, because I love the way that he talks about and analyzes music. So if you are interested in like rap, production, music, please go and check out his channel. It'll be in the description. But to answer your question, Mike, I recently read The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, which is by a man named James Weldon Johnson. And actually, a lot of people don't know this, but besides a couple of novels that he wrote, he also co-wrote the Negro National Anthem with his brother, I believe. The existence of the Negro National Anthem is great because I recently listened to How Not to Get Shot by D.L. Hughley. And in that, he talks a bit about how there are other stanzas of the national anthem that incorporate some racism and racist references. So I really love that we have that alternative. So I believe that is finally all of the questions. Thank you to everybody who asked me something, and thank you so much for watching this. And yeah, I'm gonna see you guys in my next video. Peace.